multiple systems, analyzing any kind of modus operandi of the threats that may be at sea, and design a system which is using AI, yes, but not only Argos, radars, imaging, even some, let's say, eavesdropping, listening to what is going on with the sea radars on each boat, in order to look at the threats globally and then derive a picture that can be used as an information. So back to square one, yes, AIS is considered, it is a key aspect, but not only, it has to be designed in a proper overview as a space system.
Thank you very much, Jean. Cosimo.
There have been those two interesting considerations from the floor. The first about the automatic identification system, and the second about the overall search and rescue network. In fact, I mentioned it as evident and possible applications of a global GNSS systems. But I think we have to reflect here about one consideration that from a certain point of view could be obvious. But then in practice, in the day-by-day life, it's not always fulfilled, and is the integration of the value chain and the homogeneous progress of all the enablers. And I try to explain me a little bit better. We cannot do anything good with a perfect GNSS systems if now I am going to say something obvious. We have not an high precision mapping. Why having a secure system if the remaining of the enablers are not secure? So when we discussed before about the integration of the sensors, the problem of system of systems, I think that we have to enlarge this discussion to the proper integration of the value chain. And in fact, this, I think, is the bigger need, the bigger macro trend, I think, in the GNSS evolution. Now, we are assisting to something that, in the GNSS field, I mean, that could be even defined revolution instead of evolution, because in 4 or 5 years from now, we will have up in the sky about the double of the navigation system and an enormous coverage from the integration of various available operational systems. This is not useful if we do not progress in an homogeneous way in the application field. Now, as always happens, first of all, the network, and then immediately on time, with the proper lead time, the application. So I think the consideration is that we have to work all together now to, as I mentioned before, for the integration of the value chain. If not, the risk is to have something that is technologically perfect, but at the end, operationally wise, not so useful as it could be.
Rick?
Very briefly, I'd like to address a couple of the interventions and then make a quick closing comment. With respect to tsunamis, I want to make sure that we convey to this audience that the primary means for the international tsunami warning system is based on bottom pressure recorders out in the middle of the ocean. What we alluded to in terms of the remote sensing capability was an interesting new observation, but 4 years ago we only had 6 of these bottom pressure recorders. We now have over 40 around the world's oceans, and we've expanded the warning time to 5 to 6 hours for most of the long-distance tsunamis. The second point, I'd like to address the question with respect to the availability of some of the land use data. Jean-Francois made a great characterization of the availability of a lot of these data already. The real question is the access to the public, to the coastal zone managers, to the land use managers. And within my agency, we've recognized the utility of something like Google Earth as a tool that most people can use for these kinds of applications. We are working with Google Earth, and they are working with the global community, and I can guarantee you within 6 months you will see an extraordinary advancement in terms of the capabilities for access to these kinds of geospatial data through Google Earth's efforts. Finally, for our friend from Mercator, you asked a general question about the continuity of data and specifically asked about JSON 3. And I encourage the audience to take a look at the website of the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission, who is soliciting a global letter of support for continuity and support for Jason 3.
So that's where you go to sign up.
That's where you go to sign up. If you Google IOC, you will find that site, and you can, in fact, respond.
Don't conclude yet.
Okay.
Just
those were the
answer
interventions
some of the
I wanted
questions.
to ask. That's
Good.
it.
We have a few minutes, so again, a sort of a challenge to each of you. I'd be very pleased to hear from each of you. One thing that over the next decade, even 2 decades for those who have to plan very, very far ahead, but at least over the next decade, you would like to see happen that you think would take a really quantum leap for our oceans and for our monitoring and knowledge, and perhaps even in the larger climate change picture would really make a difference. If you had that magic wand, what would it be? Who would like? You want to start? You're thinking. You want me to go to someone else first?
This is the challenge, actually.
Go ahead.
Well, if I